In today's video, we'll be making a fitted wedding band to go next to a sapphire and diamond engagement ring.
First off, we take all our 18 karat scrap or offcuts, put it in the crucible and melt it all down until it's nice and molten gold. Next step, make sure your ingot is nice and warm. I usually spray it with a bit of canned oil and just to make sure the gold doesn't stick. And after that, you chuck it in your pickle pot and leave it there for a couple of minutes just to let all the excess flux and residue dissolve. And if you have a little bit of flux stuck on the gold afterwards, just take a file to it and file it out. So next step is we head over to our roller and we gauge the thickness, and we're going to start out with our first square section, adjust the roller accordingly and start rolling our metal down to square. So you want to make sure about the measurements and just roll it down accordingly. And I would suggest every few rolls, 3 to 4 rolls, you anneal your metal, chuck it in the pickle pot again, let it sit there for a while, get it nice and clean, check your measurements. Next step, we'll go over to the flat side of the roller, just as the roller up again, make sure the gap is big enough to allow the metal to pass through, and then you start the process. Just carry on and roll it down until you get to the right thickness. Always make sure to keep checking your measurements. If you make a mistake, you have to start all over again. After we've rolled it down to the right thickness, we give it another anneal. So annealing process is just to soften the metal, make it easier to work with. I always like to just double check, kind of visualize where the stones is going to sit and get the center for the band. Next up, we'll just mark out the center. What we're going to do next, we're going to actually roll the ends thinner than the center. So the first thing you want to do is find the center of your piece of metal, and after you've identified the center, you mark it out well, give it a little hole so you can actually place the vernier tip into that little hole. You measure out about 9 millimeters on your vernier, and then measure that 9 millimeters on either side of the center, and in that way you have the thicker part and you have your thinner parts marked out. So when you take it to the roller, you're going to roll up to those little Sharpie marks, so that that'll give you a nice definition in the ring once you bend it round. So you'll start out with the first side, rolling it in up to that mark, up to that line, and make sure not to cross that line because that could throw the whole center off. This is a crucial moment in the ring making process, so be sure to take your time and make sure you don't cross that line. So you do the one side, then the other side, then adjust your roller. So you want to go down to no less than 1.3 millimeter, because that's the thinnest you want to be with the bottom of your band. Now that you've rolled your metal down to the right thickness, you want to calculate the diameter of the ring, so you can cut your piece of metal to the right length. So what I generally do, I measure the inside of the ring with a sample ring, or get the size, multiply that by pi, which is 3.14, and then I always add the thickness of the metal as well, just to allow for that extra bit of length. Otherwise the size might come out too short. Now that you have your length of the metal, you can divide that length in two and mark it out from the center of the band or the strip of metal, and mark it out so you know where to cut, and that'll obviously give you your total length of the band, so when you bend it you'll be at the right size. So I have this nifty little ring bender attachment on my ring stretcher. But if you don't have something like that, don't stress. You can use an old school way method, do a swage block and bend it around that way. After you've bent it around and you're happy with the shape, the next step is to make sure your joint aligns perfectly, and just use a pair of pliers and tweak it and get it perfectly aligned and nicely in place, so you don't hardly have any gaps showing through. So another trick I like to do is to just run a saw blade through the joint after I've lined everything up. That gives you a nice clean cut and a flush joint. So now that your joint is all flush and true, now you can run some solder into the joint and fuse it together.